Thank you, guys. I love Amber, first of all, and thank you for being here with me. It's been really cool to watch Amber all along her journey. When I first met her, she was still in kind of that rough patch, and it's really cool to see how far she's come. And her baby is really, really cute. I like to move around. I'm used to teaching a lot in front of people, but I'm also not used to having you look at me. I'm more used to like telling you what pose to do and then you're not looking at me. So forgive me if I seem a little nervous because I am. But I wanted to start asking a few questions just to have you think about. First, are you the sovereign of your life? Why do you make the decisions that you make? Are you a victim of your circumstances, or do you believe that you have control over your situations? Are you excited about your life? So what does it mean to be the sovereign of your life? What does that word mean? Sovereign means possessing supreme or ultimate power. For example, do you make the decisions that you make to please your parents or to fit some kind of societal standard or to appear a certain way to your friends? Who has the most power in your life? Why do you do the things that you do every day? All kinds of little decisions, from what you choose to wear to what you eat to the activities that you participate in, what you fill your time with. Why do you do what you do? So yeah, who has the most power in your life? Because in theory, it should be you, right? In theory, you should have the most power in your own life. A good friend posed that question to me several years ago, and I realized that I was not the sovereign of my life. I was not making decisions for myself. Pretty much everything that I did had, in some way, shape, or form, something to do with something that my parents wanted for me, or some kind of if I want to fit in with these people, or I want these people to like me, or boys to notice me, or things like that. Everything that I did had something to do with another person. I work really well with analogies, and so I wanted to kind of frame what I'm going to say around this whole like medieval analogy that I've been thinking a lot about. So imagine that it is medieval times and you have your own kingdom. So each person here has their own kingdom. Would you rather be the king or queen of your own kingdom, or are you okay being a peasant or a court jester? Who are you giving your power to in your kingdom? So in order to become the most powerful version of yourself, to be that king or queen, you have to be willing to consistently, constantly, always be on your own hero's journey. You have to be willing to be brave. You will come up against dragons, because we all do, because that's what this life is. And you have the option of avoiding them, or fighting them, or integrating them. All of our dragons are different, of course, but like Shay said, hard is hard, right? Dragons are dragons. And my heart's going to be different than your heart, but hard is hard. But if you can integrate those dragons, I believe, and what I have come to find is that is how you can become the king or queen of your own kingdom. That's how you get the treasure. And we all want the same treasure, right? We all want to be happy and have amazing relationships and to heal from past trauma and things like that. I mean, unless anybody wants to be a peasant. Does anyone want to be a peasant? That's not good. You want to be a queen. Yeah, you want to be the queen, not a peasant. Well, that's very tricky. And I do think that there's possibly a time that would be handy. As long as you're like secretly also the king.
Yes.
Yes, okay, then that's fine. But just like for trickery purposes, sure. I think that could really come in handy. So through my hero's journey, I have, which is far from complete, so don't think that I'm trying to tell you that it is or anything. But I have faced a lot of different dragons in order to feel like, years later, after my friend asked me that I really truly feel like I am the sovereign of my life. And so I wanted to share some of those different dragons and then just the tools that I learned along the way, which kind of all will like come back to the whole like yoga idea and theme. So my main dragon, I think, of my adult life has been PTSD from abuse, from a really traumatic relationship. And I mean, that's not what I really want to focus on, but I think that it's safe to assume that we all have had some kind of trauma. No matter what it is, we all have experienced some kind of trauma. And though the traumas will be different, the effects are generally the same, right? Increased anxiety and depression, PTSD, hypervigilance, fear of being close to people, things like that. And like I said, this has probably been like my fiercest dragon, like the kind that can fly and has like multiple heads and can like shape shift and like stupid shit like that, right? Just like a really, really like mega dragon. And so through this experience, I learned something about myself really quickly, that I have a strong distaste for being uncomfortable. And as soon as I recognize a problem, I will do anything to mitigate the problem. Okay, there's a problem. I think I'm gonna need some help. And the main thing that I learned from that I wanted to point out is that I learned that my mental and spiritual and emotional health is worth investing in. Time, energy, money, because if I'm not well on the inside, then nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. And like Amber shared, like if I'm not well, I have nothing to give, my relationships fall apart. That is something really, really worth investing in. And I mean, I think we all have to hit that point. We'll have different rock bottoms depending on trauma, depending on our personalities, our life experience, things like that. But it took me getting to the point where it was like, okay, I will try anything. Give me your oils and your crystals and I will try anything to not feel like this anymore, right? And I think we all get to that point at different times, right, with different experiences. And so I'm not gonna say that there's one like universal tool that will work for everyone, but one thing that I have found that has worked wonders for me, and then a lot of people that I've helped, is yoga and mindfulness. So I used to think that yoga was more just kind of like gymnastics tricks, about being flexible and kind of fun poses and all of that. I did it off and on in high school with my aunt. I had an aunt that was pretty into it. And then as I got into college, I started doing it a little bit more consistently. But still kind of focus on the physical. I was struggling with an eating disorder at that point, and I used that as oh great, this is another way that I can burn calories. This is another way that I can make sure that I don't gain any weight. I quickly realized though, as I was going consistently, that I felt different after doing yoga than after going for a run or lifting weights, or there was just something a little bit different. And I wasn't sure at that point what it was, but I knew that it was something different. And I also had, a roommate that tried to commit suicide and just a lot of different things. And I realized that yoga started to become kind of like an anchor for me. And it helped me, I found myself a few times at the end of class, just a random class at the gym, but I was laying there at the end and, crying and just thinking well, wait, what is this? Why is this happening? But I feel safe here, and I also feel like I'm able to come back to myself. So it kind of shifted. I mean, and now, like Shay mentioned, it's my whole livelihood. It is a really, really big part of my life, and I have seen it help a ton of people over the last, I've been teaching for about 12 years. But for me now, it is how I come home to myself and how I feel most like myself. I feel like it's how I got my power back. And it's the lens through which I choose to see my dragons, and then, can work on integrating them. So I was thinking we could do a little bit of yoga. Just where you are in your seat, go ahead and let your eyes close. I promise this will be so easy. You might adjust so you're sitting up a little bit taller. And then first, I want you just to notice. So notice your feet on the ground, in your shoes, if you're wearing socks or not. Notice how your pants feel on your skin, on your legs. Notice the weight of your hips as you're sitting on the chair, also your back against the chair. So bringing your mind to the present. Notice your shoulders, your hands. Are your hands hot or cold or neutral. And then without any judgment at all, just kind of notice what's going on in your mind. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about something that happened earlier today or that's going to happen or that you're worried about? Just kind of notice where your mind is at. And then notice the rate of your breath without changing it. Your breath can be a really helpful tool to tell you a lot about how you're feeling. So generally, if your inhales are longer than your exhales, you're feeling anxious or maybe a little stressed. And if your exhales are longer than your inhales, then you might be feeling sleepy or lethargic. So just gently try to create an even breath. It doesn't matter if you're breathing in and out through your nose or mouth. No worries about that. But just kind of notice. And then start to make a few clockwise circles with your head. Really gentle. Good, and then make a few counterclockwise circles with your head. Nice, and then pause with your right ear toward your right shoulder. Drop your right ear down to your right shoulder. You might even pick your hand up, your right hand up, across the top of your head. Apply a little bit of pressure. Breathing into that left side of your neck. How is your neck feeling? How does the top of that shoulder feel? Our heads are heavy, right? Our necks do a lot of work to hold our heads up. And then drop your chin down toward your chest. And interlace fingers behind the back of your head, just kind of rounding there through the back of your head. And then release your hands, lift your head up, and drop your left ear to your left shoulder. Notice the right side of your neck. If you want to lift your left hand up and apply a little bit of pressure, you can, feel free. Good, and then release. Gently draw your head back to the center. You can leave your eyes open for 1 sec. We'll do one more tool that I found. It's called Cooper's posture. Stick your arms out and then cross at your wrists so your palms are facing each other. Interlace your fingers and then tuck your hands under. Yeah, and then just let your eyes close. You can bring your chin onto your knuckles if you want. That can feel nice. So crossing your hands this way is, it's great physiologically. It connects both hemispheres of your brain. It's also like giving yourself a hug on the inside. Activates the parasympathetic nervous system, induces relaxation. And just taking a few breaths like this can really help if you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. Give yourself 3 more breaths just like this. And then gently release your hands. You can blink your eyes open. Good, awesome. And maybe just notice how you feel. Hopefully it's slightly calmer, but that's a really great tool that I learned kind of on my path. Super simple, you can do it anywhere. Again, it's called Cooper's posture. One thing that I have realized is I think when our pain is too great, we tend to avoid it. So we avoid those really big, scary dragons a lot of the time, right? But when we block the feelings, we unknowingly stunt the necessary healing process that can lead to a natural release. So I don't know if anyone's heard of the book or read the book, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. But I have a friend that says, no, that's right, they turn into zombies and they eat your brains. Because it's true, right? They're gonna come out at some point. And so best to lovingly welcome and integrate those dragons, right? And love those parts of yourself in the process, rather than, you know, ignoring them until they have a bunch of dragon babies and eat your brains, because that's what tends to happen. So am I okay on time? I have no idea what's happening. Cool. As I was still kind of, I guess not even kind of, still super struggling with PTSD, I remember I would go to Costco but not even ever really make it to Costco, because I would pull up and sit in my car for a few hours and just like not even be able to go in because I was so anxious. And Costco's overwhelming as it is, even if you're like a super healthy person, right? And I couldn't even like get it together enough to like go into Costco and like buy stuff and then go back out to my car. And I remember telling one of my friends at the time, who actually is he works in recovery, he's an addiction specialist, and he said to me, is there a chance that you won't always feel this way? Is there a chance? And I remember thinking, well, I mean, there's probably a chance, but it's really hard to see outside of that when you are in it. You know, is there a chance that this feeling is temporary? Not talking about a guarantee, but is there a chance that this is temporary? And sometimes just that chance, accepting that there is a chance that it's temporary, brings enough hope for me to hang on to. And sometimes that little sliver of hope was honestly what kept me like choosing to stay alive, because it was to the point where it was like I said, I'll do anything to not feel like this anymore. And I think the main kind of conclusion I want to draw on this little section is that all of this is a choice. It all is a choice. So some people are ready to be sovereigns of their lives and some people aren't. Some people care and some people don't, right? Some people want to show up and some people would rather be on autopilot. Some people believe that they can create a life that they love, and some people would rather be victims of their circumstances because it's easier. It is all a choice. And that's something that I see really often when I'm teaching is people, you can show up and go through the motions, but it is up to you if you're going to actually show up. So kind of to piggyback on that idea, I was dealing with so much trauma, I was unable to do as much, like I couldn't even go to Costco, right? And I realized that I had this idea of my self-worth being based on achievement or on accomplishing things, even if it was just like day-to-day kind of tasks. And I noticed that I mean, in addition to everything else, I felt like shit because I also felt like all of a sudden I was worthless. I couldn't do anything. And I had a different friend say to me, do you realize that even if you didn't lift a finger another day in your life, that your worth would be the same? Even if you accomplished nothing else another day in your whole entire life, that your worth would be the same now as it would be then. And intellectually, I thought, okay, well, that is like fine for other people, or I can see how that would apply to like other people, but like that doesn't, I don't really think that that's true for me. And I mean, she was pretty adamant, no, that is like, that's a thing. And Shay referenced this, but I spent about 6 weeks by myself in Australia trying to, I mean, I was there for a yoga training, but it was from about 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day. And I was just by myself with my thoughts for the rest of the day. And I did a lot of writing. So journaling is also a really big tool, I feel like, that helped me to kind of unpack. Because at this point, I still didn't understand why I was feeling so shitty. And I realized that I had this idea of achievement-based worth that I think our society really prescribes to. And then also I think it's part of, I mean, kind of my family culture, not really on purpose. I think that's just like how I grew up. I felt like, you know, if I got good grades, then my mom loved me more. When I would clean my room, then I would get positive attention, right? My mom loved me more. Okay, like I can do these things. I'll just keep doing these things and then I'll get more attention. Like I'm a smart kid. I can figure that out. I'll just like repeat these behaviors. And then when it got to a point that I couldn't repeat those behaviors, then it was like, well, fuck, now what? Sorry, I totally super lost my spot. Anyway, so I feel like for me, I got to the point where it was more just asking like, okay, well, I'm not really sure if I think that's true or not, like for myself, but what if it's true? I can be open enough to say, what if this is true? How would that change things? Can I operate based on like, if this is true, how I would behave this way? And just being willing to give that a shot and say, I'm gonna pretend like this is true and then see if my life changes at all. See if things start to shift. And you know, it was to the point before that where I would go to the grocery store and just kind of walk around just so I didn't have to sit home and do nothing because I felt almost guilty. Like, oh no, well that's lazy and I don't wanna be lazy. That idea of an inherent worth, regardless of choices, regardless of circumstance, regardless of any kind of achievement, made a huge impact on me as I was trying to kind of integrate that whole PTSD dragon. And then lastly, kind of like in the background of all of this, starting before and then going like through up until now, I studied English in college and knew nothing about business. And I also thought that I was going to go to law school, probably just because I could or felt like, okay, well, I have 4 brothers and I grew up with kind of the idea of, well, if you can do that, I'll also do that and I'll do it better than you. Kind of like just because I'm a girl doesn't mean that I can't do this and also be successful at it. And so it wasn't even that I ever really wanted to go to law school. I just felt like, oh, well, I'm pretty smart. It would be a waste if I didn't. I should do this thing because I'm capable of it. And then I kind of realized that just because you're capable of doing something doesn't mean that it's healthy for you or a good choice. Luckily, it didn't take me actually going to law school to learn that because I think I would have been quite miserable. But I was taking the LSAT, doing a bunch of different prep stuff, and woke up one morning like someone hit me over the head with a 2x4. Like, that is like not your path. And it was like, oh, well, I have literally no, like that had been the idea for years. Like I had no other options or any other like ideas or anything. And my parents were very kind, luckily, when I told them that I think actually I'm not gonna go to law school, but I'm gonna do this like yoga school. And I'm sure my dad was like, that's cute. Like, and she'll just like come back to the law school idea when she's like done with this phase. And while I was starting to teach yoga and doing other things, I had a number of different jobs, all of which I got fired from, every single one. And I think that I know that I'm quite opinionated, and that is part of it because I always thought that I could run things better than what they were doing. And so it was like, okay, well, that's a story for a different day. That's a different dragon, I guess. But I ended up starting my own studio it's been almost exactly 10 years, almost exactly, like maybe even this month, I think, with no business experience, thank you. And from that, the main thing that I learned is that everything is figure outable. Everything, no matter what, always. There is not a problem that is not figure outable. And that I knew nothing about, why don't they not teach you about taxes in school or like any kind of basic, I knew nothing. Sobbed the first time my dad was like, well, yeah, you have to pay like taxes on your business now. And I'm just like, someone should have told me that was a thing because I didn't know. And the main thing I think that got me through that was, everything is figure outable. Another way of saying just being tenacious, right? Having tenacity. Once I opened my business, it wasn't an option in my mind that it wouldn't work. And that wasn't even a conscious choice or something that I did on purpose. It was just like, well, I'm doing this thing and I'm going to do it. And I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out or what it's going to look like at the end, but it's like having it fail, it was never an option. And there are a lot of different roadblocks, like the building that I started in. Someone purchased it and I had to get out, and just a ton of different things, figuring out all the different business aspects and logistics and all of that. But having the attitude that I always could figure out any problem I think is what really made it so that I still have a studio today, and it is successful despite COVID bullshit and all of that. So kind of to tie those all together, if you come back to the idea, do you want to be the sovereign of your life? Do you want to be a king or a queen of your kingdom, or are you okay putzing around as a peasant because it's your choice and no one is going to do it for you? Doesn't matter how many yoga classes you go to or how many motivational things you read or listen to or whatever, you have to choose to be an active participant in your life. Look at your dragons. Okay, am I gonna ignore this or integrate it? How can I love this aspect of myself more to continue on my hero's journey so that I can be powerful in my life and be excited about the life that I have created? That's all.